This conference will now be recorded.
Informatica Powercenter, and then unit testing, then deployment activities, and then Unix basics, shell scripting. Okay, and then finally projects. But this is the training agenda. So if you want to learn Informatica Powercenter, you should have knowledge in all these areas. But generally, most of the students will have the SQL basic knowledge. Okay, so here what I will do is the live session would be from the data warehouse. Okay, so for the SQL and PLSQL, I have the recorded sessions to brush up the SQL knowledge. SQL around 8 hours of the recorded session I have, and the PLSQL just 2 hours of the recorded session. Okay, so this total 10 hours of the recorded session I will be sharing to brush up the SQL knowledge. Okay, but even though if you don't have knowledge in SQL, so in Informatica Powercenter, parallelly I will also be explaining the SQL concepts like creating what is the database, how to create a table, how to insert, update, delete the records from the table, and then about the constraint, and then about the joins and all again in Informatica whatever is required to work with Informatica. So again parallelly I will be explaining in Informatica class. Okay, before that, so if you can go through this SQL PLSQL these recorded sessions, so that would be helpful for you. Okay, so but the live session would be from the data warehouse. So data warehouse, we just have the 1 hour session to understand the data warehouse concept. Then Informatica Powercenter, most of the time we'll be spending here around 25 hours. And then unit testing, deployment, Unix, all these three in 1 hour. Okay, so there are many things in Unix, but just for interview point of view, what we should have to know. So those things I'll be explaining here. And the projects will have 1 hour session. Okay, around the duration including with the installation would be 30 hours of the duration. Okay, this is live session plus 10 hours of that recorded SQL recordings I will be sharing. Okay, so total around 40 hours of the recorded session. 40 total will have the 40 hours of session, right? So this is the duration of this training. Okay, so now in this demo session, what I will do is I'll explain what is data warehouse, what type of data we store in data warehouse, and what we can do by using the data warehouse data. And then what is this Informatica Powercenter tool, where we use this Informatica Powercenter tool, and what are the concepts we are going to cover as part of this Informatica training, those things we'll discuss. Fine. After that, if you have any questions, we'll discuss about that.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So now let's start understanding the data warehouse. For example, there is an ATM machine and we have a database here. Okay, so this is ATM machine and we have a database. Okay, so this ATM machine is connected to the database. Okay, so we know whatever transactions we do through ATM machine, not only ATM machine, if you have an account with the bank, we can also do online transactions, right? Okay, so all the transactions, whatever we do through ATM machines or front-end applications or online or internet banking, so everything is going to be loaded inside the database. Inside the database, we will have the tables. There we are going to insert all the records. Okay, so suppose let's say an user, he has made the first transaction. Whatever transaction he has made, the first transaction record, first it will be inserted into the database. Transaction means withdrawing or depositing the money through the database. Okay, so after 1 hour, he has made the second transaction. The same second transaction record also inserted in the database. Inside the database, we'll have the table. Inside the table, we'll have one record inserted. Next, after 1 hour, he has made the third transaction. The same third transaction record also inserted in the database. Like this, in a day, he has made around 1000 transactions. Then user, let's say he has made 1000 transactions. Whatever transactions made by the user, all the transaction data should be there in the database, right? So we have a database where we have all the transaction data. Okay. End of the day, he has selected the mini statement option in ATM machine. So let's say there is a mini statement. So as soon as we select the mini statement, it is going to generate one mini statement. So mini statement will have how many transactions? Any idea? Do we have all the transactions or only limited number of transactions?
First and latest and
Latest, exactly. So latest transactions or limited number of transactions we'll have. So this mini statement we can generate from ATM machine or internet banking also. There also we can generate the mini statement. So which will have the latest transactions or recent transactions. So why it contains only recent transactions? Why not older transactions? Means one of the reasons we have. So whichever the database here we have to store the transaction data. This database itself is designed to maintain limited number of transactions. Okay, so this database itself is designed to maintain limited number of transactions. Limited means, let's say this database is designed assume to store only last 10 records. Okay, if this database is designed to maintain only last 10 records, as soon as user made the 11th transaction, before inserting the 11th record here, first we'll delete the first record and then we'll insert the 11th record. As soon as user made the 12th transaction from the ATM machine or from internet banking, before inserting the 12th record, we delete the second record and then we'll insert the 12th record. Like that, as soon as user made the 13th transaction, before inserting the 13th record, we'll delete the third record and then we'll insert the 13th record. Okay, so like that, so even though user has made 1000 transactions in a day, so this database contains total how many transaction records? Only last 10, because the database is designed to maintain only last 10 records, not all the transaction records in the database, right? Okay, so why the database is designed like that? Why can't we maintain all the transaction records in this database? What will
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Can you say again that last point?
Okay, so here this database is designed to maintain limited number of transactions. Limited means last 10. Assume if this database is designed to maintain last 10 records, even though user has made 1000 transactions, we will have how many records in this database? Only last 10, right?
Okay, sir.
So why the database is designed like that? Why can't we maintain all the transaction records here? What will happen if you maintain all the transaction records in this database? That we will discuss.
if we go for the select statement of the transactions, it will fetch all the, like for example, he made 10,000 transactions, it will fetch all 10,000 at once. So instead of bringing all 10,000 at once, they are creating to fetch only for last 10.
Okay, fine. We'll see what will happen if this if we are going to maintain all the transaction records. Suppose let's say the same user from last 1 year he has made 1 million transactions. Okay, the same 1 million records assume we have inserted in the database. User from ATM machine or from different sources he has made 1 million transactions, and we have stored all the 1 million transaction records in this database for that user. Today he has selected balance inquiry option. So in ATM machine or in front-end application also we have balance inquiry option. As soon as we select the balance inquiry option, at the back it will connect to the database. On top of the database, some select query will execute. Okay, now for one user we have 1 million transaction records. So if the select query, assume the select query is going to execute on top of 1 million records to display the balance. I repeat, for one user we have 1 million transaction records, and if there is a as soon as user selects the balance inquiry option, it will connect to the database. On top of the database, some select query will execute. So that query, assume if it is going to execute on top of 1 million records, how much time it will take to execute? Will it take long time or not?
Yes, sir, it will.
Yeah, definitely it will take time. So how much time it will take? It took 5 minutes of time. So user selected balance inquiry option. At the back, some query is executing on top of 1 million records, and it took 5 minutes of time. So, and after 5 minutes, it has displayed the result. So can we wait in ATM machine for 5 minutes to check the balance? No, right? As soon
No.
as we select, the option, immediately within fraction of seconds, it should have to display the result. But here it is taking long time. Why it is taking long time? Because of the huge transaction data. So okay, so that is the reason in this database, whichever is connected from ATM machine, if you maintain all the millions of records here, then queries will take long time to execute and it will affect to the customers and they would not be able to do transactions. So that is the reason we are not going to store all the transaction data here. We are going to store only recent transactions or limited number of transactions. Assume if this database is designed to maintain only last 10 records, even though user has made 1 million transactions from last 1 year, today how many records will be there for that user? Only 10, right? And if he selects the balancing query option, and if the query is going to execute on top of only 10 records, how much time it will take to execute on top of 10 records? Within seconds, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so within fraction of seconds it is going to display the result. Okay, so that is the reason this database is not going to maintain all the transaction data. This database will have only latest data or recent data. Okay, fine. Next, let's say customer he requested for last 1 month bank statement or last 6 months bank statement or last 1 year bank statement. Do we have last 1 year data in this database to generate last 1 year bank statement?
No.
No. So we have only recent data, right?
Yes.
Limited data. We do not have last 1 year data. Then from where we will get last 1 year data? Means parallelly to this database, we will have one more database. Okay, so as soon as user made the first transaction, first record will insert into the first database. The same first record we are also going to insert into the second database. As soon as user made the second transaction record first it will be inserted into the first database. The same second record also going to insert into the second database. Like that, the third record, fourth record. As soon as user made the 11th transaction before inserting the 11th record, so from the first database we'll delete the first record and then we'll insert the 11th record. Whereas here we are not going to delete anything. We will be keep on inserting the records like this. Okay, so first database contains only last 10 records, whereas the second database contains all the 1 million records, right?
Okay, sir.
Okay, so whatever data here we have in the second database, we call this as the historical data. What we call this one? Historical data. So can we call this as the historical data or not? Because we have full history, right? From day one to till date, we have all the transaction data. That is the reason we call this as a historical data. So whichever the database is having the historical data like this, such a database we call it as a data warehouse database. Okay. So what we call this database? Data warehouse. So data warehouse contains what type of data? Historical data. What is meant by historical data?
All the transactions.
Right? So all the transactions. If you store all the transactions, okay. So if you store all the transactions in the database, then we can call that as a historical data. Okay. So can we call the first database as a data warehouse database? No. This database we call it as a OLTP database. So OLTP means online transaction process, which contains the latest data or current data, whereas the data warehouse contains historical data. Clear? Okay. Now, what is the purpose of storing the historical data in data warehouse? What we can do by using the historical data? Any idea?
Yeah, if you want to fetch, for example, apart from this top 10 like mini statement, sometimes we'll go back and fetch for 6 months data, 1 year data. At that time, historical data will help us to fetch that data.
Yes. Correct. Okay. So we will see what is the purpose of storing the historical data in data warehouse. What we can do by using the data warehouse data. Okay. So let's say we have one more ATM machine belongs to same bank in different location. Another ATM machine belongs to same bank in different location. So this is, let's say, in Bangalore location, this is in Hyderabad location, and this is in Chennai location. So like that, we have three ATM machines belongs to same bank in three different locations. Okay, so all of these three first they have connected to OLTP database. All of these three first they have connected to OLTP. So from there they have connected data warehouse database. Okay, so which means in data warehouse we have the historical data of all these 3 ATM machines. There are 3 ATM machines belongs to same bank in 3 different locations, and all of these 3 ATM machines transaction data first it will be inserted in Oltp database. From there it will be loaded into the data warehouse database. Okay, next. Now let's say we have the history like this. So in the year of 2001, okay, I'll assume from the year 2001. So from this location, Bangalore location, total we have 120 transactions. Whole year from this location, how many transactions happened? 120. Okay, then from Hyderabad location, let's say we have 100 transactions. From Chennai location, we have around 40 transactions. Like this, we have whole year transaction data belongs to these 3 ATM machines we have in data warehouse database. Okay, so like this, let's say we have one more year transaction data. So from this year, we have 100 transaction. From this year, we have 120. So here some we have 30 transactions. In the same way, we have one more year transaction data. In the year of 2003, from this location, we have 150 transactions. From this location, we have some around 90 transactions. Here some 40 transactions. Like this, we have 3 years of transaction data belongs to these 3 ATM machines we have in data warehouse database. Okay, since all of these 3 belongs to same man, let's say they have some cutoff transactions. If the transactions are greater than 50, that is in profits. If it is in less than 50, that is in loss. Okay, right? So now by seeing this data, you tell me in the next year which machine we should have to keep, which one we have to remove to keep the business in profits. So we have 3 different ATM machines from 3 different locations, right? So
Yes.
which transactions are greater than 50, which is in less than 50?
Chennai
Yeah, Chennai.
and yes,
Yeah,
and
so this is in profit or loss?
uh, should be a loss. It's
Loss,
below
right?
50, right?
Yeah,
Yes,
so less than 50. So these 2 are in profits, right? So
yes,
whatever the data here we have, so we call this as a report. Can we call this as a report or not? We can call this as a report. Now what
okay,
you did here, by seeing this report, you have done some analysis. Based on the analysis, you have taken the decision on the business to keep the business in profits, right?
yes, sir.
Okay. So from where we have generated this report, by using which data?
Data warehouse.
Yeah, by using the data warehouse data, we have generated this report. Okay, so report contains, we have, like by using the data warehouse data, we can generate a report. That report is useful for the business people to do analysis on their business and to take the decision on the business and to keep the business in profits. Okay, I repeat, data warehouse contains the historical data. By using the historical data, we can generate a report. Those reports are helpful to the business people to do analysis on their business and to keep the business in profits. So if you don't have this type of report, how would we know that like whether it is in profit or loss? Is it possible to identify which is running in profit and which is in loss?
No, sir.
No. And also, can we generate this type of report based on Oltp data?
No, sir, we don't.
No. Why?
Because it's because only recent data and
Exactly. So yes, so since it contains only recent data, we cannot take the decision on the business. So to take the decision on the business to generate the report, we need to have the historical data. By using the historical data, we can generate the reports. Okay, so this is the overview of the data warehouse. Now we'll talk about Informatica. Informatica is a company name. That company developed many tools. One of the tools name is ETL Informatica Powercenter. One of the tools name is ETL Informatica Powercenter. What is my ETL? Any idea?
ETL, sir.
ETL means extract,
Yes, sir.
transform, and load. What is meant by ETL? ETL means extract, transform, and load.
Transform and load.
Yeah. So Informatica Powercenter is an ETL tool. So ETL means extract, transform, and load. Extracting the data from Oltp database, transform and load into the data warehouse database. So here, whatever transactions made by user through ATM machines or front-end applications, all the transaction data is going to be inserted inside the data warehouse database. So first Oltp, right? First, where it is going to be inserted in Oltp database, right? So from
Yes.
Oltp, it's whose responsibility to extract the data from Oltp? It's whose responsibility to extract the data, and who will load the it's whose responsibility to extract the data from Oltp database, transform and load into the target database means ETL Informatica Powercenter. So here we use Informatica tool to select the data or to extract the data from one database, transform and load into another database. Finally, we load into the data warehouse. Not only Oltp to data warehouse, we use this Informatica tool to extract the data from different types of sources, like it can be a files, transform and load into a table. Okay, and between Oltp and data warehouse, we have multiple databases like staging database and the ODS database, like that we will be having. That we will discuss in detail in the data warehouse class. So like that, to transform the data from one database to another database, not only database, to transform the data from one file to another file or multiple files to a table, we use this Informatica tool. So while loading the data from one database to another database, we have so many scenarios. Yes, go ahead.
Nothing, sir. Nothing.
Okay. So like that, while loading the data from one database to another database, we have so many scenarios. For example, let's say in the Oltp, we have one table, there we have some duplicate records. Okay, so if you load those duplicate records, if you extract the duplicate records and if you load those duplicate records to the data warehouse, then data warehouse will have the duplicate data or incorrect data. Okay, and so if you have the incorrect data, then if you have the incorrect data, then duplicate records will be generated, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that is, so we have to extract the valid data from the source database, transform and load the valid data into the target database.
Okay.
Got it? So like that, sometimes let's say from the source we have to select only specific records. Let's say where salary greater than some 1000 or 100, something like that. So we have to select the specific records from the source database. So if you want to select the specific database from the source database, then we have to write the queries to filter the source data. We have to write a query inside the source qualifier transformation. Okay, so in such scenario, we have to write a SQL query inside the source qualifier transformation. That is which will be available in Informatica. Okay, so that is the reason you should have some basic knowledge of SQL, writing the queries to select the specific records from the source table. Right? Like that.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so for that reason only, I will be sharing that SQL PL SQL. You can go through those recording and you can start practicing those things. I'll help you on that. And parallelly, once we start Informatica, I'll also be explaining the SQL. I'll show you practically in my system. Each and every mapping I will show you. The same thing you have to practice in your system. Okay, there are few scenarios where you use the Unix shell script. So I'll also be explaining the same scenarios in interview. If they ask you have to explain the same scenarios, whatever, I'll be explaining in the class. And then unit testing means basic standard unit test cases. As Informatica developer, what type of testing we do. Okay, so that will be max by 10 minutes. Will be there only testing test cases, 5 test cases I'll be explaining. And then the deployment means in real time we'll have a dev QA UAT production. So we'll be moving the code from one repository to another repository. So that is called deployment. So that one also practically I will show how to do the deployment. And then Unix basics and shell scripting means Whatever the scenarios I'll be explaining in the class, around scenarios I'll be explaining. The same scenarios, scripts we will go through in the Unix class. And for interview point of view, you should have some basic knowledge about Unix. And I will explain
Sir,
like what
just
are.
give me 1 minute, sir. I'll just
Yes,
keeping on unmuted. I mean, for myself, just give me 1 minute, sir. Okay.
yeah, sure.
Thank you.
I have a question. Can you
Yes.
show us a Informatica Powercenter now? Like just briefly, can you open and explain?
Okay, so that will take time, Powercenter. So because I have to start the services. So if I start the services, it will take 5-10 minutes to start up. So I have the Powercenter tool here. Okay, so let me complete this one. This one till that time, if it works, then I will show you.
Okay.
So here you should have to start the service. It will take some time. Okay. So here I was explaining about this deployment Unix basics, some basic commands. I will tell what are the commands you should have to learn. And then the projects. So here I'll explain two different projects. One is telecom, the other one is sales domain project. The same projects you can mention in the resume, and also you can what I will be giving the same thing you have to explain in interview. So project means first I'll explain the business of that project, and then the data flow, and then the mappings what you have created. The same mappings here we will be creating in Informatica, right? So SCD type 1, SCD type 2, incremental load, dynamic flat file load, file to table load. These are the scenarios we'll be creating. The same here practically I will be showing in Informatica class. Okay, so yeah, with that we are going to finish our training. So I have the softwares already uploaded in Google Drive. I will be sharing the link to download the softwares. Once you download the softwares, I will be helping you to install the softwares like Oracle software, Informatica server software, Informatica client software, all these things. Informatica Powercenter 10.2 version. We will be working with the 10.2 version of Informatica. So okay, the same thing I'll be sharing. So I'll be helping you to install all these softwares in your system, right? So once the software is installed, every day I will be giving 4 or 5 scenarios to practice. You have to practice the same thing in your system, and if you have any doubt, you can contact me anytime. Okay. And apart from that, I have the materials, soft copy materials. So materials also I have uploaded in Google Drive. So I'll be sharing those materials. You can refer those things like some documents, real-time documents, and the materials related to Informatica Powercenter. So this is all about our training, and the training timing would be, Monday to Saturday we will have a weekday, morning 7 a.m. India time 7 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. IST. So this is our class timing. So Monday to Saturday will be there.
Training will be from.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, sir. I'm back, sir.